Right. So, good morning again to everyone. And as usual, we have been chatting for the last, well, 5 minutes anyway. So today is the project video. So, well, project class. I won't say video because the video has been up already, right? Um, so just to kind of just get it started and hopefully y'all could make notes because the notes will kind of slow me down, right? Like if I go to write everything I'm saying on screen, then that kind of slows down the whole thing anyway. So some of the things you need to remember is that the project is part of your certificate. You cannot be awarded some admitting some people, right? You can't, so you would not be awarded the certificate if you fail the project, right? So the NEBOSH certificate from orientation, there is two parts. You have the open book exam and you have this project that is meant to be like an assessment. So just take a note of that. And probably the other thing I wanted to write down there is that the pass mark, I could ask, but I kind of frightened to ask if I remember. We did discuss this in the last class, right? And so anybody remember what's the pass mark for the project?
45% or 40.
Okay. Anybody else?
Remember 40%.
Right, okay, good. Anybody else? You collect the book already?
For the project,
Yeah,
there's no pass or fail. It's either you pass or you fail.
very good, Desiree, right? So I actually met Desiree yesterday, was it? Was it? No, I didn't meet Desiree yesterday. That was another student, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, and so yeah, so the project doesn't have a pass mark, right? So the simplest way to break that down for you is that I think I told you for the project there is like a left hand side and a right hand side of a table. I can show you the table now. You can just let me know if you're all seeing this. So are you all seeing this? Unit NG2 risk assessment. Are you all seeing that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, sometimes it zoom like when so I change the view now, but yeah, either share the share back that view or I guess in some cases it's seen it. So the project is very simple, but it's a bit long. So there's a left hand side and a right hand side. So this is what we call the left hand side here. And to pass, you must fulfill everything that's on the left hand side, right? So if you fulfill everything that's on the left hand side or everything they want you to do, you'll pass. However, the minute that you leave out one, you would fail. So please take a note of that, right? So there is this sample. I'll give you the sample later on today or tonight. And there is a guidance for it as well. And once you follow, you'll go correct, right? Once you start to do your own thing, well, you would not pass. But the good news here is that we do look at a draft, right? So if you all do your draft, so we're not gonna finish the project today, right? That's an exercise. So the project is about 2 classes. So if you all do if you do what I tell you to do, you'll all pass, right? And if you can't do all this week then, right? Because we're gonna do something today. I want you to finish something for me today. Well, not today, for this week and hand it up, right? If you can't finish it for this week, fine. But whenever you're doing this, you need to play over this video or a video because there's already one on the WhatsApp group, right? So you could hear what we're saying then and then do it because if you do it like that, you will have no room for improvement. You'll get it correct. But if you start to do your own thing, right, by not looking at the guide and not looking at the sample, then you would not pass, right? So the simplest way to break it down is like this is like a mathematics sum then that the teacher has shown. But the one they're giving you to do is just like this. So if you remember doing maths, then the teacher would have worked out a fraction on the board and then give you one like it. Right? Now, if you do your own thing on that fraction, you will not get it correct. But if you follow what you see and if you follow the example, you'll pass. So that's why they give you an example, right? So we can normally tell from the draft who has followed the sample. If you follow the sample, we have nothing to correct. We just know this person is going to pass, right? But if you sit down right? And believe it or not, I told you, like in every batch, there's always one. So I hope that person is not here. There's always one person who want to do their own thing, who didn't listen to what we're saying in class here, or probably didn't listen to the video, even though it's on the WhatsApp group and YouTube channel, and you have the guide and you have the exam. But there's always one student in every class, right? Who, when you start reading, when they put the name of the organization, they'll put something else. When they put site location, they'll put something else. They go and do their own thing then, right? So another way, I don't know if you want to write these things down. Like I said, like I wouldn't write it because it's gonna take too much on the screen. So you have to write that there is no pass mark. You have to just do what they ask you to do. Just do one just like this one. Right? So that's a good way of saying it. Do one just like this one. Right? And you can underline the word just like this one. Don't do it your company way. Don't do it the way you want to do it. Do it like how this is. This is the fraction example, the analogy that I'm using. Don't do the fraction your own way. Do it the way that the teacher show you, right? So remember again, too, this is not about me. So when I say teacher, it's not me. This is about NEBOSH, right? So we are not correcting this. This going to England for correcting. So if you do it like this, I tell you, look, we have students, I've mentioned their names. We have students that will just take the sample and do the whole thing out without a hiccup, without a question asked. I sometimes ask them, I say, you all don't need any extra help? They'll be like, no, we have our example. If you give a big man, to say it the right, if you give a big man, right, and a big woman an example to follow, and you tell them follow it, ain't you all supposed to follow it? I just asking the question, because you see, when you see the drafts that they come in, I'll say it again. If we give a big man and a big woman an example to follow, and I tell you do one just like this, where in that have any misinterpretation? Where in that would have a misinterpretation to say that you could go and do your own thing, right? So folks, if you want to pass, please take down these words are saying, right? Like, do one just like this. Don't do your own thing. Follow what you see here and write it out just as what you see here. Now, in the event that you get lost, and for some strange reason you didn't make your own notes, or for some strange reason today you didn't listen back to the video, they have a guide here, and that's what this is the first thing I'd open here. They have a guide for it. But most students, I realize, don't follow the guide, they just follow the example. But the guide tells you exactly what they're looking for. Look at here, the guide actually tells you what they're looking for. So a good idea is to read the guide. I'll send these things for you all later on tonight. A good idea is to read the guide, right? And like, for example, if you look here, you'll see what they ask for. They ask for the name of the organization. So if you flip back to this one, you'll see here, name of the organization. You all seen that? But you could just use this though, because like this is the other one in itself. But just in case you mix it up now, right? The next thing you want, the site location. So if you come back here, you'll see site location, right? So if you use these two things, there's no way a mature human being could go wrong. I say that because, like I said, this is the only school that does teach the project, right? What is really required is that I should have emailed you all this and you all had to go and do it. That's how it's done around the world, right? But people pass around the world, and then the students who sit in a class like this, who have it spoon fed to them, still get it wrong. So that's a mystery to me, right? It had to be something with Trinidadians because it's not the Guyanese. This is actually true. This is not a joke I'm telling you all, right? The Guyana students always get these things right. So I'm not too sure, is it that like you have to get somebody else to teach you, because maybe Trinidadians don't want to be taught by a Trinidadian, right? But those of us who want to be, those of us who want to learn, and you want to pass, well, this class is for you, right? So how many workers are employed by the organization? If you come back to the guidance, you see the same thing. Sorry, the sample, right? Number of workers, and the rest of it is here. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the same thing here. The guidance have actually, it's an example as well. Look, they have it here too. They actually reproduce the same example here. Look at there, right? And then even on the risk table, they actually do a sample for you as well, right? So these two documents are to be used hand in hand. And you should write that down. You cannot, you shouldn't just use one. What I said was that students more like to use the sample, but that doesn't mean that's the way it's supposed to be, right? I'm just telling you what students do. What you should do, you should use the guidance and the sample. If you use the guidance, which is this one, and the sample, you cannot go wrong. Plus you have a video, plus you have a draft, right? Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start this now. And again, if you want, if you have any scrap paper, we can do this one time. I think I was telling you all that. We could just do it one time and then you could just type it out. And we are going to reach the table today, so you could just type it out and you can hand it up on Thursday this week. Next week we have the project is 4 parts. If you want, you can say that down. There are 4 parts to the project. Part 1. We're gonna finish part 1 now. We're gonna start part 2. Well, we'll finish part 2 because all of this is the same explanation, and I just have to do this once, right? But next week will be part 3. Yeah, look how long part 2 is. The other thing I told you is that remember, most schools do this at the end of the course. We do it in 3.4. This again, the only school that does it like this. We give it 6 weeks before it's due. And I guarantee you half of you here would still not be finished with it. But the schools that do it in 3 hours time at the end of the course, everybody finishes. All right, so part 3, this is part 3, we'll do this next week. Part 3 is kind of long, and then there is a small part 4 to the back of it. So there are 4 parts there. Today we focusing on part 1 and part 2. Again, all of this has been in the WhatsApp group, right? And you know, like I said, we are here for you all to make you all pass, but you all have to be there for yourself because this is not a kind of course where I could come and do this for you all anyway, right? So this is the thing about NEBOSH, eh? Everybody wants the gold standard, but you know, you had to work for it now. We had said that in the orientation day, and you know, many of you asked about the project, but let's see how good you all are now in terms of getting it done, right? So let's take a go. So if you have scrap paper or file pages, you could actually write this down. You can put name of organization, we could fill it out now, right? So if you all do that, if you all do that here, 22 of you will be finished with this before 10:30. But if you don't do it, well, we'll see how much of you will be finished by Thursday next week, right? All right, so what you want to put? You want to put the name of the organization. And the only thing I have to tell you there is that any name will do. So just put a name. Don't even think about it. Just put a name. Make up a company, use a real company, doesn't matter. Just put a name, right? This National General Garage. Do you think that's a real company? No. That's a made-up name, right? So just put a name. It doesn't matter. Like I said, to pass the project, it's about left-hand side and right-hand side. It's about, you have to fill it out. If you leave this blank, you'll fail, right? So you could put any company you want. You can make up a company. If you, I'm just seeing who I have on screen. I have Rika on screen. I have Nishon on screen with me, Desiree. So you could just make up a name. You could put Paria, you could put Atlantic, you could put, you could even use your own name, DNC, General Contracting. It doesn't matter. So therefore, fill it out now. I'll give you 1 minute to write that out. Write out, if you're writing it out on a sheet of paper, name of organization and put a company name. They could call it XYZ if you're unsure. ABC, right? Yeah. So you could call it ABC, Infinity, right? Contracted. It doesn't matter. I'm giving you 1 minute, huh? I'm taking off my camera a bit, taking off my mic a bit, and I'll come back 9:22. It's 9:21. Okay, it's 9:22. Everybody got through that. Everybody wrote out the name of a company. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. Put a real one, put a fake one, it don't really matter. It's all about left hand side, and just keep that to the back of your mind, right? It's all about filling out the form, right? And that's because it doesn't have a pass mark. Once you leave something out, you'll fail. But if you do everything, you'll pass, right? Next one, site location. So here they have Leicestershire, UK. So you could put anywhere in Trinidad or Guyana. Don't even think about it. You could put your address. Don't even think about it. You could just make up a street name. 21 Jump Street, Trinidad, West Indies. Church Street, Burbies. It doesn't matter. For those of us who put in Guyana, though, you put a comma and you'll put Guyana, South America. Those of us in Trinidad, Santa Flora, South Trinidad and Tobago, West Indies, right? Ari, Peru, where again? Shoguanas. It doesn't matter, right? Just fill out the form. So that should take you just half a minute. Just fill that out. And you can write it out, like I say, on 5 pages if you do have this, because I know you do have this. Today was all about scrap anyway. Tonight, tomorrow, you could type it out. Right? Anybody have any questions with that? So Trinidad, just put Trinidad, West Indies, and Guyana. Whatever you put, if you put, Albert Street, Main Street, Georgetown, Guyana, South America, that's like what you put in there. It really doesn't matter. You can't fail. You only fail is if you leave that out. You can't fail for the site location. Right? It doesn't even have to be a real street. Okay, next one, number of workers. So just put a number of workers here. Again, it doesn't really matter. But it cannot be a low number. So keeping numbers kind of like in the 20s. Even if it's not, keep it in the 20s, 15. 15 is okay. 12 may be okay, but keep it in the 20s, right? 21, 25, 23, 22. Just fill it out. There is no wrong way for that. The only wrong way is if you leave it out. And let's get to the next one, because the next one have a little bit more to it, right? A little bit more explanation. So let me read this first and then I'll explain. So we have general description of the organization. So I'm going to read the whole thing first and then I'll explain, right? So NGG Limited is a medium-sized garage with offices, vehicle repair shops, and paint spray booths. The business does a lot of repairs and maintenance on commercial vehicles and body repairs on vehicles, mainly cars and vans, and have been involved in accidents for insurance companies. Servicing and this is MOTs, which is maintenance, are also carried out for members of the public. Typical activities undertaken include moving spare parts from the stores to the workshop, engine repairs, activities relating to servicing, MOTs, body repair, draining fuel oil, spray boot activities, including the use of paint that are solvent-based, full stop. There's a reason why I said it like that. I'll tell you just now. The garage operates from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, and is closed at the weekends. Workers are only required to work 7 hours per day, so there are staggered start and finish time in place. So again, the simplest way to tell you is you could write this over, but for your company, just like this. You could change up little pieces of it, but I'm trying to see how best you see to go a bit fast, right? But yeah, that's the simplest way to tell you. The simplest, yeah, go ahead.
You can use the same format, just different words.
Yeah, the same format. Now there's a format here, but I'm trying to see if we go into the format, it will keep me back a bit, right? But you see, if you follow it, like what you're seeing here, like if you follow like here and here, like you follow where the full stop start and end, you will still go correct, right? So let me try to teach it without teaching it, right? So this is NGG Limited, is a medium-sized garage with offices, vehicle repair shops, and spray paint booths. Watch this, right? So I'm gonna turn it around. I'm just gonna use like a roti shop or something, right? So I'll say, Frankie's Roti Shop is a medium-sized restaurant with one office, a seating area, a kitchen area and a washroom, full stop. That's how simple that was. That is teaching you without teaching you. That's just telling you follow, because there is actually something happening there. Like what you see happening there, what you're supposed to put there is the size of the company. So that's what you're seeing it, the size of the company, and you have to put 3 locations. So I don't know if you want to write that down, but if you follow the line, you will still get it right. Right? So the teaching is that I'm still teaching you, I'm just not writing it. Right? So you're supposed to put the size of the organization, and you're supposed to mention 3 locations or 3 places in your business then. Right? Let me just make up a fabrication shop. Or what do you think is easy? So I use a roti shop just now. Let me use what could be easy? I guess a fabrication, a welding shop, right? So I'll just put here, so XYZ is a small fabrication workshop with 1 office, a warehouse, yard, and a stock room. Full stop. So you see what I'm doing, folks? That's just to tell you how simple it is. So you could actually write out yours, but you might want to write it now, right? But the point is I wanted to understand that you could just change up the lines on them a bit, right? But stick to the same format that you're seeing. Stick to the same format that you're seeing, right? I'm trying to admit somebody here. Let me know if you have any questions. So in case you didn't write it down, what really happened there in the line was size, and it must have at least 3 locations. You'll see vehicle repair shop, office, and paint spray booth. So whoever using must have the same. You can say Shadrach Safety Institute is a medium-sized tertiary level institution with offices, well, not at the facility here, but with 1 office, 5 classrooms, and a washroom. Full stop. And like in doing that, then you still follow the principle of following the line. So the idea is if you just take the lines and you convert them into one of yours, then you'll still go correct, right? So let's go to the second one. So the next thing you're seeing, so I'm still teaching, I'm gonna hold up the hands though, I hold up the fingers. So that was size and locations. So supposed to have 3 locations. The next thing you're supposed to put is the function of the business. The function. But if you just follow the line, you'll get it right anyway. So the function is, if you read this, the business does a lot of repairs and maintenance on commercial vehicles and body repairs on vehicles, mainly cars and vans that have been involved in accidents for insurance companies. Servicing and maintenance are also carried out from members of the public. So that's function. So I will go with the roti shop example. I'll say the business caters for members of the public on special occasions such as weddings and graduations. Catering is also done for the public school sector or companies involved in the energy sector, something like that. And that's talking about a roti shop. I'll say it again, right? The business does catering orders for members of the public, for walk-in customers, as well as for special occasions such as weddings, graduations, events, right? Catering is also done on a contractual basis for members of members of the public, right? So catering is also done on a contractual basis for the Ministry of Education school feeding program, as well as for providing meals for contractors at various companies. That's a function of a roti shop. And I just made that up without thinking. I'm actually not thinking about it. If you sit at home and you thinking without 22 people watching you, then you should do better than that. Right? Let me just do one for the fabrication shop, right? So the business does repairs, welding, fabricating, assembly, right, of parts and components for generators, equipment. So you can put that there, then you can have like servicing of customers, use generators or motors are also done by XYZ fabrication workshop, right? So if you follow that, then you can't go wrong. But what was happening there was really function. Tell me if you're okay with that, everybody. Cliff, you okay?
Wonderful.
Francesco, you okay? Just so they follow the line. If you take the pattern from the
Yes, sir.
line, you'll still catch it here, right? Adnan, you okay? So I'm trying to use different areas now, like a roti shop, a fabrication shop. If you even was using a school, right? So you can say the school offers primary school education for public students as well as private students. The school also offers adult remedial classes in the afternoons on certain knowledge programs, something like that, right? And so you can even use, you can just write it up the way you see fit. Folks, there is no wrong answer. The only wrong I tell you is when you don't fill it out, right? So we onto this line. Now, this line here, from this part here, I'll tell you before, what you have to do, you have to flesh out the activities taking place and separate them by a comma. So that's why when I read it, I actually read the word comma. I actually said comma, right? So I'll read this one. Typical activities undertaken include moving spare parts from the stores to the workshop, comma, engine repairs, comma, activities relating to maintenance, comma, body repair, comma, draining fuel oil, comma, spray boot activities, including the use of paints that are solvent-based, full stop. And that's the last one. So let me go back to my roti shop example. So I put typical activities undertaken at Frankie's Roti Shop includes loading and unloading vegetables and meats from the delivery vehicles to the kitchen area, comma, washing and prepping of the vegetables and meat, comma, cooking and meal preparation, comma, storage of meals or the transporting of the meals to customers, whether in the restaurant or on an off-site basis, full stop. Can't get it wrong, people. Or they can't get it wrong, and I'm telling earlier, if I get it wrong, but it have a penalty here, which is the P to come back. But it's not my fault. It'll be your fault. Right? Tell me if you're okay with that, everybody. I tell you, as mature adults, even if you send a child to primary school and the teacher do one somebody board and tell you go and do one like that, even a child will get it correct. Right? Okay, folks, tell me if you're okay. Tell me if you're okay. So whatever you choose, you want to make up a business, you want to
I
use
have a
a real
question.
business. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
In terms of the function of the organization, it could only be three. What if there's more than three functions of the organization?
I
Like,
think
for
was just
example,
one, well,
stores.
it's three areas, I think, but I think was one main function, right? The business that repairs. I don't think there's a limit to function. I don't think there's a limit to function. Yeah, there may be a limit to the areas. So like office,
Right, that's the question actually,
yeah.
like the places.
You could put four. There's no, like you don't feel for putting 4 or 5, but 3 is good
Okay,
enough, right? And so, I mean, like I
understood.
say, like you don't really feel this if you put 2 in. You like if you put 2, you put 2. You don't feel for that. You only feel if you don't fill it out. Say if your business only have
Understood.
an office and a warehouse, put that. They're not gonna feel it for that. But if you have an office, warehouse, garage, workshop, but don't put everything. Don't put 10 things now. Like 3 to 4 is okay, and you're okay still, right? But if you don't fill it out, that's when they would feel it. The project, I think I told you this last week, is like a checklist. A checklist is like you watch the left hand side and you watch the right hand side. So that's what they're doing. That's why I do have a pass mark. It's like a checklist. Once you have it, you pass. Once you don't have it, well, you don't pass. All right, next piece of it. So we reach here, this piece of it. So what you want to put here, so I'll tell you, so this is the 5th thing. So the first thing was size, location, function, activities. And the 5th thing is the time. The time the organization works. You have to put the time, but there's a catch. You have to put the shift as well. You have to put the shift. Yeah, okay, so you have to put a shift time. You have to put the regular time. See if you can write that down. No, it's right in the guidance. If I go back, I'll show you. It's right in the guidance I have here. But let me just tell you, right? So you have to put the organization time of working, and you have to put a shift. Please take a note of that. Is that clear to everybody? And you have
Yes.
to put a shift, right? So to re-emphasize this point, of which somebody will still not get it in this class, I had a student who told me her company doesn't have a shift. Okay, so I said, great. So that's nice. But NEBOSH is asking her to put a shift, right? She didn't put a shift and she failed. When she failed, she had to pay and come back. And then she put a shift and she passed. Today she's a safety. I could call a company, but I wouldn't. It's in Hoover. right? So let's do like a good way to think of this project. People, no offense to anybody, and again, like anybody on the, if anybody's looking at this around the world, this is not offensive. This is just something in the region here that we say. So just like a saying we say in Trinidad and in Guyana, right? It's not meant to be offensive. It's not meant to be. It's just what the locals will understand, then, right? So like a nice way to think of this is jump when they say jump. If they say jump, jump, right? If they say jump, you jump. And that's what this project is like. It doesn't matter if your company doesn't have a shift. Put a shift. The guidance the guidance say, if you want, I'll go back and show you. Let me just do that and show you. Look, the guidance document here. I just need to take off my marker. But I can't do this every time. I can't show you everything because it means we're going to take a bit long. Your job is to read this guidance and see what I'm telling you. Watch it here. So we are number 5, right? Sorry, we are number, yeah, I think we are number 5. No, we're number 4. We're number 4, right? Watch it here. So you wanted a general description of the organization, types of activities undertaken, and what's this word here? What's this? What's this? You all seen it?
Shift patterns.
Yeah, so how could you tell NEBOSH now we do have a shift? When the guidance asks you for the shift. If they say jump, jump. They ask you for a shift, put a shift, even if you're making it up. Right? Let me read this one for you. The garage operates from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays and is closed on the weekends. Workers are only required to work 7 hours per day, so they are staggered start and finish times in place. You can change that to the end. Listen to how I would say it. I would say it. The roti shop operates from, what time my roti shop is open? 10 a.m. So the roti shop operates to open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. Full stop, right? My thing was say on the weekends, there is a shift system in place from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. That's what I would say in my roti shop example. And I actually mention the word shift system. Let me use the fabrication shop, right? So the fabrication shop X, Y, and Z operates from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. Full stop. However, if there is a special job or on the weekends, workers may be required to work on a shift system from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Full stop. And that's it. You can never get that wrong. The only reason you get it wrong is if it didn't mention the word shift, right? But don't do like that, student. Don't burn to learn because it's money spending, right? Do what we're telling you to do. Do what the fraction teacher showing you to do. 1/2 is 1/2, right? So do it the way we tell you to do it, and you will pass with flying colors. You'll be out of here. You'll be on your career path. And in that time, if you want to change the project, you do it the way you want to do it then. But for now, as this going to England, do it the way that they want you to do it. Okay, so that's finished. So this piece down here, tell me if you're okay. We almost finished this one already. So we have the description of the area to be included in the risk assessment. I'll read it again. Description of the area to be included in the risk assessment. Well, listen to this before I read it for you, right? You're not ready doing a description. Let's read it again. Description of the area to be included in the risk assessment. And what I just said is that you're not really doing a description. If you watch this, is this a description? That's not a description. A description is be longer than that. So what they wanted to do here, they just wanted to choose about 3 areas to do the risk assessment on. Right? You could use 2 if you want, but I still recommend 3. There's a reason for that. I'll tell you the reason just now. Right? So all you're doing here, you're actually not describing, you're simply stating. You're simply stating the risk assessment will cover the garage and spray boot activities. The office area has a separate risk assessment. I would not do that. I wouldn't say what they said. I would say the risk assessment will cover the garage and spray boot activities and the office. Why would you leave out the office? That doesn't make any sense, right? You see, the project, if you remember, last 2 weeks is based on 10 hazards. So if you have more areas, you could get more hazards. I wouldn't leave out an area. Nor do I expect you all to leave out an area. And if I see you leave it out, I would still recommend that you include it in your risk assessment. Why would you do a risk assessment? for NEBOSH and then leave out an area that you talk about. That doesn't make sense. Because this is your exam, this is your project. Why would you say the office doesn't have a risk assessment, right? Anyway, let me get back to my roti shop. So Frankie's roti shop, the risk assessment will cover the kitchen area, the food preparation area, and the seating and accommodation area. Full stop. That's how simple that is. I shouldn't leave out anything because I want to get 10 hazards. Why would I leave out something? Right? If it's the fabrication shop, so XYZ, the risk assessment will cover the office area, the fabrication area, and the storage area of XYZ Fabrication and Sons Limited, or whatever have you. That's how simple that is. These things are no-brainers, right? Which is why nobody should fail the project. Which is why in Guyana, when people listen, nobody does fail. Nobody really feels. It's only Trinidadians. Somehow feel as if they can do their own thing, right? You could do your own thing, but when the course finish now, you go back and do your own thing. For now, do it the way they wanted to do it, right? All right, last thing here, any other relevant information? Well, this is actually not true. They didn't really say any other relevant information. If you go back to the guidance, they actually tell you what they want there. What you say, they actually say, who has the day-to-day responsibilities for health and safety in your organization? Any other relevant information? Example, who has the day-to-day responsibility for health and safety in your organization? So you're not free to write what you want to write there. If you feel you could write what you want to write there, you'll fail. So the examiners expect what you put here is who has the day-to-day responsibility for health and safety. So this one says the finance director who reports directly to the managing director has direct responsibility for health and safety. So you could just make it up for the roti shop. I'll say Mr. Frankie, I'm just making a bad name, Frankie Henry, the owner of the roti shop, has direct responsibility for health and safety. How hard is that? In the fabrication shop, I can say the health and safety officer, actually no, that'd be wrong. The health and safety manager who reports to the CEO has direct responsibility for health and safety. If it's a big company, you're using one of these big companies in Trinidad, it may be the same thing. You can say the quality, health, safety, and environmental manager who reports to the board of directors has direct responsibility for day-to-day health and safety. And this piece is done. Tell me what you think and tell me how easy that was. And watch how much examples. You got 3 examples, right? Schools are getting none. You'll just get the sample. Most schools just get this and the guidance, and you have to go and get the project done. By the way, our pass rates, even in Trinidad, is very higher, but it's never 100%. We have always had that one student falling away, that one student who doesn't hand up a draft, that one student who didn't listen back to the recording, but we are very high. We're the highest in the region, as you all know. Remember, I didn't tell myself this, and NEBOSH is the one that told. That's why Shadrach Safety is the top NEBOSH provider in the region. I've said to you all, if you go on the accredited page, it have other schools. Shadrach is not the first letter of the alphabet. It have ATC. But how come ATC is not classed as first? If you look at the ranking, the accreditation ranking, Shadrach is first. S is first, but S is not the first letter in the alphabet.
So that's how I
Right?
found you in the first place.
Yeah, look, folks, I was in Guyana. When I was in Guyana, a student came in class and this lady was looking at me and smiling. I said something had to be wrong. So you know, like what's going on? And she said she saw me on YouTube, and she saw me on YouTube. That's how she got in contact with the school. And I can remember I talked to her and I tell her to come across at that training in Guyana there. But she said she was looking at the videos and like I'm in front of her now, so she find it kind of funny, that she saw me on the record and then she see me live. So the pass rate is good, and folks, we want you all to pass. Why you think we looking at a draft? Why you think we doing so much, right? We want you to pass. But, and we are happy. A lot of people are happy with the 94%, 95%, 97%, but why we can't get 100%? Why somebody had to fall through in Trinidad? Guyana is like 100 anyway, right? But why does somebody have to fall through in Trinidad, right? Anyway, folks, let's get to the next one. Remember, it's a couple of things. So the next piece of this, again, if you're taking notes, this is called the methodology. kind of long, but if you go back here, you'll see it here. Look at here, methodology. Look the word here. This piece we're going on to is called the methodology. Method, METHOD, and ology, OLOGY. That's called the methodology. The reason why I tell you this 3 times, and I show it because other students who did this project and fail up. When I tell them, so you didn't do a methodology, he was like, what am I talking about? So I say, I try to remember his name, huh? He's a safety today, you know. We are very good friends, by the way. His name started with K, but I can't remember his name. But I told him, you know, so you didn't read the guidance. Like if a teacher show you something, you didn't read the guidance to see what you had to do, right? So this piece is called the methodology. So when you see you're getting your corrections and I tell you, look, you need to fix your methodology. That's the piece just under that first piece there, right? Anyway, let me just go to it. So remember, we could just follow and do one like it. So in the methodology, they wanted to outline how the risk assessment was carried out. This should include, watch it, 1, 2, 3, and watch this, 1, 2, 3, and a little bit. So each of these bullet points are being answered here. The first thing you want to put is the sources of information that you consulted or that you researched. The next thing you want to put is who you spoke to and how you identify the hazards, what is already being done, and any additional controls, actions that may be required. Let's go to the first one. So the first 3 lines, look at this, just 3 lines, right? What you want to put here is some research information that you consulted. So let's read this one. It said, I started by looking up references to good practices relating to our organization. The HSE website had lots of resources. For example, health and safety in motor vehicle repair and associated industry, INDG 261. They give the URL was a good source of information. Let me just admit somebody's on the outside. My friend from Guyana, Vincent, right? So again, the simplest thing to tell you is do one just like this. But there is some learning in here. But if you do one just like this, you'll still go correct, right? So let me just give you the learning fast, right? So what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to go on the HSE website and get about like 2. Now, why I say 2? Because you could have one here and it have one down there, right? Get about 2 sources of information, like relevant to like your company. If you can't get it relevant to your company, you can just base it on a hazard. Like if you think your company have noise, you could just get the guidance for noise or get the ACOP for noise. If you think your company has manual handling, you can just base it on that. But you want at least 2, and you want to put the name and the number of them. This is why we had done that class. We had done a class for this, and you want to put the URL, right? So let me just write over this. I'm going to say it over now. You can actually change it up a bit. You don't have to say I started. You can say I began my research by looking up references for additional or sources of information for XYZ fabricated. The HSE website had a good or had relevant information that was, pertinent to my company. These include, and you'll have to research one of the HSE site and plug it in there, put the URL, and you say that was a good source of information. That's how simple that is. Let me just try to the rotation part, and I'll just stick to this one. I started looking up good references relating to Frankie's Roti Shop. The HSE website had numerous information sources that was helpful to me. These included, and you put something there that you research on the HSE site about restaurants and bars or whatever have you. And you put the URL was a good source of information. Folks, that cannot be hard to do. Because you all know how fast it was to get the URL, but to get it on the HSE website, all you have to do is put HSE in Google and put in what you're looking for, right? You put guidance for noise or guidance for restaurants. I could do one now for you to show you how simple it is, right? And it doesn't take time at all. We had done a class for this. This is straight on Google. So if you go and you put HSE website or HSE home, the home page. I think it took me to like a real estate agency. So it's really HSE, Health, Safety, and Executive website, right? Which is this site here. It's not hard to find, so I shouldn't even be doing this, right? So it's not hard to find. The search bar is here. You plug in what you want to plug in the search bar. And you could start searching, right? I'm just gonna search for restaurants. I'm just gonna put guidances for restaurants. So those of us who probably thought that was a weird one, it's not a weird one. Remember the HSC website have a guidance for everything, right? And you just have to get one or two of them and your business is fixed. Not really a hard thing to do at all. Guidance for restaurants. It's coming up. Internet seems to be a bit slow at the moment. Okay, catering and hospitality. Look, I got some there. So that's what you're kind of using if you're using the restaurant thingy, right? So you see, I started by looking up good practices relating to Frankie's Roti Shop. The HSC website had numerous information sources such as catering and hospitality. You click on it, and you're gonna get the URL and stuff now, right? You get the URL and the guidance and stuff, right? Risk in catering and hospitality. You could put more than one. Folks, you could put more than one if you want. You're not limited to one. But you must at least have one name. You see, this is HSG 261, and you must have the URL for that as well. Tell me if you have any questions there. Look, I got here INDG 244, Workplace Health, Safety and Welfare, a short guide. So I could have plug in that one. Then if you can see it's not hard to find. It's a click of a button. Back in my day, you had to find your tail in a library to find these things out anyway. If those of us who even know what a library is anyway, right? But it's just a click of a button and you get them today. And there's no reason not to do it. And there's no reason that you all shouldn't be handing up this by Thursday anyway. You could literally hand up tonight or tomorrow if you want, right? Anybody who finishes this, please hand up. I'll correct it and send it back to you. And once it's okay, you can type it. It's okay. Once it's okay, you could actually start to use that as your final one time. Yes, this is your final one time, right? Once we check your draft, you could just fix it up because there will be changes to be made on the draft. Even if it's slight mistakes, right? You fix it up and that's what we use as your final. Next thing here, who you spoke to and how you identify the hazards and what is already being done. Now, the last bullet point is meant for this paragraph down here. So who you spoke to and how you identify the hazards. So let's see what they said. After looking at sources of information, I then went around the workshop and talked to the people who were doing the job. They gave me information that was not obvious from just a visual inspection. For example, a lot of workers did not know that there were dust masks available or the reasons why they should be worn. So again, this simple thing, you just write one just like this and you're good to go, right? So I would say something like, after doing my research, I went around the roti shop and talked to the cooks, the cleaners, the meal preppers who were actually doing the job. The chef gave me information that was not obvious from a visual inspection. I could change it up a bit. The chef gave me information that I didn't think about, such as his exposure to heat or his long-standing hours, right? So you could just make it up like that anyway. So you just read this and you write one like it and you should be good to go, right? The next paragraph here, this is what is already being done. And again, how you identify the hazards. I also checked the accident book to see what types of incidents had occurred over the last 12 months and whether any of these incidents were reoccurring. I also checked the reasons for sick absence again to see if there were any reoccurring themes or ill health. So you can say the same thing. The restaurant owner allowed me to view the record of accidents the restaurant had over the last year. I also was able to ask the reasons for the accidents. So something like that, you just write it over anyway. Yeah, sure. I'm not sure. Yeah, the pay fighting. Yeah. All right, so just write one like it. If you don't want to say accident book, you can probably say you want to look at that they allowed you to see the company statistics. Some company have it published on the notice board. So you can say during my walkthrough, I observed the company record of accidents on the notice board. I asked, the chef, or I asked the fabrication workshop manager, what would have been the reoccurring themes. I also checked the reasons for sick absence again. So I inquired with the manager about the reasons for workers being sick or workers staying away from work to decide if there were any trends or reoccurring themes. Something like that. You don't get it wrong. You decide to kind of stick to the pattern. You wouldn't get it wrong for saying anything off. Once you kind of talk about that, you are looking at that you are walking about and that you are looking at records, you're going to get it correct. One note here is that you should mention the position of persons that you spoke to. When I read mine, I said I went around the restaurant and spoke to the chef, the cleaners, and the meal preppers. You need to mention the position. If you're in a workshop, you can say I went around the workshop and spoke to the welders, the fire wardens, the HSE manager. You need to call the positions because look at here. Who you spoke to. Who you spoke to. You could even call him my name. I spoke to Mr. Frank Henry, the workshop manager. I spoke to Mr. Lal, the head chef in the restaurant. You could call him my name. You don't have to, but you see, that'll clear it up for the examiner. That you see, this is what they're marking you by. Left-hand side, right-hand side. So who you spoke to. If you just say people, some examiners don't like that. Because who is people, right? So you say, I spoke to Mr. Shadrach, the lead lecturer of Shadrach Safety, to identify any hazards at his office. I spoke to the lecturers. I spoke to 2 of the certificate students and 1 of the diploma student. John, right? John Henry in the diploma class, right? So the better you can do that, the better it is. Right? Right. I told you this last bullet point is meant for this last paragraph. The last bullet point is meant for the last paragraph. So any additional control actions that may be required, this paragraph is going to say that when assessing the control measures, I refer to some of the HSE approved code of practices or guidance documents. For example, when looking at control measures for dust in the workplace, I refer to dust in the workplace, and you quote one here again, right? So you can do that same thing. You can say, does it tell you to get more than one guidance, right? So I would say when assessing additional control measures, I referred back to some of the documents on the HSE website, such as, and you're going to call something as INDG 264 or something for controlling having a clean workplace in the restaurant, something like that, right? Now, the only point of interest here is that some examiners like to see the word additional. So you see additional there, but you don't see it here. But some examiners like to see the word additional here. So you see, when assessing additional control measures, I would refer back to some of my research sources of information, such as INDG or HSG something, when assessing the risk of slip, trips, and fall in the kitchen, something like that. The only catch I tell you, some examiners want to see the word additional here, and they have failed students for not putting the word additional, because the requirement, the left-hand side says additional controls, and not just controls. So see, I write it here for you, so don't get it wrong. Then the only reason if you get this wrong is that you didn't write on what I just wrote here, and you didn't read what you see here, any additional controls, right? Is it person? How was it person?
Yeah.
Oh, Ria.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, if you're okay, this piece is done. Part 1 is actually done. We're on to part 2, and it's 10 o'clock. Just tell me if you have any questions in it. As I mentioned, what you need to do when you're doing it, if you didn't do it now, because some of y'all may have scribbled something down now, you need to, first of all, I would recommend you go back to the sample. This is what we all know. This is the sample and the guidance. And then as you write your lines, just listen back to the video. Pause the video. By tonight, I'll put it on, well, once it processed, I'll put it on the WhatsApp group tonight. But it's already there. Remember, there's already a record. The same thing is on. But play it over and then write your lines, and you cannot get that wrong, right? Just keep one thing in mind. Don't do your own thing. Do it the way that you see it here, right? If you do that, because around the world, that's what students do. They don't have really a class on this, right? One of my videos on YouTube too, which is not to tell you, but just telling you people like these entrepreneurs, these like in this generation anyway. My video on this project, not the one I posted y'all, the one I posted to y'all was about 2 point something thousand views, but one of my videos on the project was the highest ranked video in the world in terms of doing this project. The reason is that nobody else has do it like this. Nobody else has teach it and put it on YouTube, right? I didn't send that one to you all because I've updated it since 2020, and that's up. I send the update one for you all, and plus you have a class here. So this is going to be the latest video anyway, but one of my original videos had the most amount of views in the world. You check when you run the NEBOSH Project videos, see Shadrach Safety coming up, but that's just 2020, and we have done it 100 times over since then anyway. Look at it, tell me if you're okay, if you have any questions for now. Also, please remember, I'm going to give you this privilege, which is, listen to the privileger, listen to the privileger. You don't have to wait for next week, Saturday, to come and ask a question. You all have my WhatsApp number. You know, you're writing something. Now, you mightn't get me as the next week, remember teaching, but send me a voice note, right? Send me, I wouldn't, you know, like, I would respond to you. It mightn't be the very millisecond that you send it in, but I would respond to you, right? So take a picture of it. You know, you write something down, take a picture of it, send it. You have a doubt, you know, ask the question, send it, right? But it wouldn't be the same millisecond, nor would it be 12:01.11 a.m. in the morning, but I'd respond to it when I get a chance to respond to it, right? So don't wait for next week, Saturday, to come here and then you have a question to ask, right? So if you like the technology, use the technology anyway, right? All right, tell me if you have any questions on this, folks. I want to get to part 2.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I'm good.
Okay, you're good, Kimberly. Now, and of course, when you look through it, please remember, do send me the messages. You know, there's don't expect it to get. Don't put no question mark, because I'll put back a question mark and block your skin, because I tell you how busy I am. In this generation, I said the school has a feedback policy of 7 working days, but I won't take 7 days to respond to you, right? Once I get time, I'll respond to you, and I'm looking for it this week, because this is when you have to get it done, right? All right, let's get to the project table now. And again, those of us who write in notes, please make sure and take your notes down at the same time, right? So we had looked at this before. So the project table is that you have to get 10 hazards in this table, 10. Now you could get more than 10, but you cannot get less than 10. If you get less than 10, you fail, right? Again, if you doubt, look at right here. These things are in the, this is the guidance I've opened here, right? So the guidance here, you must use it, you must use the table in part 2 of the risk assessment. You will now need to complete the risk assessment for your organization. You must find and record at least how much? Read it for me. If you can see it, read it for me.
10
10 different hazards.
Okay, read it slowly now. 10, what kind of hazards?
Different hazards.
Different hazards. We will see if I'll get that correct in this batch, right? 10 different hazards. So people say, well, look, the sample had 2 of the same thing. Yes, you could have 2 of the same thing. But the examiners are looking, this is a sample, this wasn't marked. This is not a project. This is a sample NEBOSH sent for you, right? So the examiners always prefer 10 different hazards. What does that mean? If it's still that not sure, that means if you use noise in number 1, don't use noise again. If you use manual handling, if you use electricity, as you're watching here, don't use electricity again. You could. The examiners do prefer 10 different hazards. A lot of the, like what you see there, the examiners interpret it now, right? So when you see 10 different hazards, they say 10 different hazards, right? So you all get that? You use manual handling, don't use it again. It's only 10. It's not 100 they ask you for, and that you have to double up. It's only 10 hazards they ask you for, right? Now, here the next thing, right? Folks, listen to me very carefully. Listen to me. I mentioned this to you before. And if you're in it for the first time, perhaps the most important thing in this table, now everything is important, but if you get it wrong from the first column, now, then the whole thing ended up being wrong, right? But the most important thing is that they give you a list to choose from. Look, the list here. I think I'd mentioned this to you. You're not free to choose your own hazards, right? Therefore, I was telling you all the last class, I was telling you all, you don't even have to go anywhere. You don't have to go anywhere to get anything done, right? You just have to choose the hazards then from the table here. So could you use noise? Yes. Could you use mental health? Yes. Could you use manual handling? Yes. It's not a hard project that we give you the hazards to choose from. It's like if you had to go and walk and find it. Long time we had to go and walk and find it in 2 hours time. I don't know if you know that the NEBOSH exam the project was 2 hours you had to do it in. And you had to go to a real company and you had to walk with a clipboard in your hand and find the hazards in them. Today, it is pulling them from here, right? I refer to this as the pool. Pool, like a swimming pool. If you ever hear me say the pool of hazards, this is what we're talking about. So could you use fire? Yes. Could you use hazardous substance, chemical? Yes. Could you use hazardous substance, biological? Yes. Could you use work at height? Yes. Could you use health, welfare, and work environment? Yes. Could you use confined space? I crossed 10 long time, yes, right? Could you use crushing? I think I'd asked this question 2 weeks ago. Could you use crushing as a hazard? Could you use entanglement? Anybody could answer those 2 questions. And me, could I use crushing and entanglement?
I would say no.
No.
It's
No. How do you know is no? Okay, you seem to be unsure.
it's a result of a hazard. That possibly is.
Okay, but anybody else? How do we know that we cannot use crushing and we cannot use entanglement?
It's not on the table.
It's not on the table. That's the simple. If it's not on the table, you cannot use it. This is your swimming pool. If it's not in the swimming pool, you can't dive in it then, right? So let's go back to the sample. So please pull your hazards from here. Again, like I said, we do look at your draft, but the first thing that crosses our minds, then remember we have 2 other lecturers anyway, right? So sometimes who check your project is not me, I'm just telling you, right? So the first thing we say, when we look at it and we see something like, should I make up a strange one, like mechanical failure. We just scratching my head because what part of this? Let's read it again. You will need to complete a risk assessment of your organization. You must, not can, you must find and record at least 10 different hazards taken from at least 5 different categories. And watch what is said here. I want you to read this to me. Let's read this, right? What does it say? Read this line with me. On the count of 3, right? For what? For
Oh, my God.
of doubt hazard categories for this assessment. If you read through this, can be found in table 1, and this is table 1 here. Look at here, table 1. For the avoidance of doubt, hazard categories for this assessment are the topic headings, but can be found in table 1 here. But nobody should put a weird heading, right? Now, if you wonder what I mean by weird, let me just spend a minute on this, all right? Because I tell you, English language is a very difficult thing. When we tell people do the same thing, the exact thing, like somehow it will still get lost in translation, right? So if you're using a hazard from here, which you have to use 10, you cannot add or minus anything from it. Okay, like this. You see this? Mental ill health, you have to say it the same way. You can't put mental health. Mental health is wrong. They will give it wrong. The thing is mental ill health. Folks, you understand that? When they say jump, jump. Don't do your own thing. What this one is give students, people just feel for this. Work equipment and machinery is the hazard. Some people just put work equipment. No, work equipment is not the category. It's work equipment and machinery. Don't add or don't minus. Just follow the instructions. 2 by 2 is 4. Right? The teacher said 2 by 2 is 4, and they ask about how much is 2 by 2. It's still 4. Right? What this one here? This one is give students problems too. What's the name of this category here? What's the name of the category? I just circled there.
Slips and trips.
Yeah, but people just put slip, trips, and fall, and it will be wrong because it have no fall in this one. You all see that catch?
Right.
It slips and trips, NEBOSH say. When they say jump, jump. They say slips and trips, you say slips and trips. Don't change anything. In fact, what I was telling you all, I mean, I told you this before. I have been doing this for a long time, right? And you know, I still have a copy of this on my table here somewhere. I don't have the coordinator take it, right? But like when you send me a draft, right? Now I know this by heart, but I don't make joke with it. I just take out the table and I check it. I still check. And I still check to see then if what you put there is the same word, because the minute you have a word off, this one is cause people to fail, work equipment, and you didn't put work equipment and machinery, they will fail you. Because what you're looking at is a left-hand side, right-hand side kind of approach. Once you have it, you'll pass. Once you don't have it, they fail you. It's more like a test of following instructions anyway, right? But it's very simple once you realize, and that's the good news, because you could just take it from here. You don't have to make up nothing. You don't have to go nowhere, right? I have another coordinator here, Darren, will tell you that we didn't have it that easy. We had to, like I tell you, physically go and find them. So they can just sit at home and pull them from the pool. They just pulling them out from the pool. Just make sure you pull the correct one though, right? All right, let's make a start. We're gonna get into the table now. So tell me if you have any questions about where the hazards coming from. And we're gonna go through one full row. Because if I go through one row, then all you have to do is just duplicate that 9 other times and then you'll finish your table. Let me just clear the slides a bit. I'll go a little bit fast with some of them, right? Some of them simple, some of them longer anyway. All right, so what you want to do, the first thing, you want to follow the top of your table, the organization name. You put back the same name you had in part 1. Don't change it. If you had National General Garage Limited, also known as NGG Limited, you put the same. Don't change it. If you change it, they'll give it wrong. You come back here, you can pull it from there. You could actually copy it and paste it when you type it out to make sure that you use the same thing. Right? Next one, you want to put the date of the assessment, and any date will do from today till you write exam. It doesn't matter. Any date will do. You want to forecast it into the end of July, that's okay. Any date will do. Any date will do. In 2024, of course, right? So any date will do. You want to put the 10th of July, the 10th of August, 2024. Any date will do. Doesn't really matter, right? All right, next one. The scope of the risk assessment. Now, the scope is, listen to this. The scope is the same thing as the general description of the areas that you had chosen to do the risk assessment. The scope is the same as the description there. Just put same as description. If you come back up here and you look for your description, general description, this one here, the description, they say the risk assessment will cover the garage and spray booth activities. That's what you put in on the scope. They have left out the office, so you leave out the office as well. Right? So the garage and spray booth activities is what you should see to the top here, garage and spray booth activities. All right? Okay, let's go into this a bit. So what do you want to put? We're going to assume that you put a hazard category like hazardous substance. And what you want to do now, you want to put an example of that hazard in your company. So everybody may have the same categories then. Like if you just do another one, like somebody may have electricity, but you have to put an example of the hazard of electricity in your company. So here we have portable electrical equipment, IT-related equipment in the workshop and store areas, and general electric installation for the whole site. That's not really a good hazard if you ask me, but you know, work equipment. What's wrong with this, by the way? What's wrong with saying work equipment?
Work equipment and machinery.
Right, it's supposed to be work equipment and machinery, right? So that's what's wrong. Anyway, back to this here. So once you give the hazard category, notice here, if you notice up here, let's pull the marker. It have two things here. It have the hazard category and the hazard. So the hazard category you get it from the table, and then you have to give like an example of the hazard. So hazard category, they have hazardous substance, and the hazard they put is dust, high concentration of processed dust. In other words, if I was in the kitchen, right, and I had my hazard was fire, I have to give an example of fire in the kitchen. I have to say like, there are numerous combustible materials, oil and propane tanks in the kitchen. So I would have given an example of what could cause fire in the kitchen. Think you understand? Let me just do back electrical. If I had electrical there, my hazard could have been that there are worn out or faulty electrical sockets and wiring. I have to give an example of the hazard in my company. Therefore, you could all have the same categories, but you're going to have a different example because you are all using different made up or real companies. Some of you okay with that? Okay, let's get to the next one, right? Who might be harmed and how? So there are two things being asked here. Who might be harmed and how? So the simplest thing to tell you is but let's read it first. Who might be harmed? All workers, customers, others visiting the organization. That's the who. From here is the how, right? And if you notice, the how is a description. High concentration of processed dust are always present from the routine and frequent activities being carried out. Since there is no dust extraction, people breathe in hazardous dust, which can cause anything from short-term irritation to long-term serious health condition. People can also get the irritant dust on their skin, which can cause dermatitis in their eyes, causing irritation, etc., etc. The point is, the how is an explanation. Let me go back to remember I said I had fire, and I had like there are combustible materials, oils, and propane tank in the kitchen. Who might be harmed? The chef, the cleaners, food preppers. How might be harmed? You can have spilled oil may make contact with the combustible materials, therefore creating a source of fuel. In the event of a fire or a lit match being, fallen to the ground, it might ignite the cardboard or the combustible materials and oil. Together with the propane tanks, this can cause a catastrophe or a catastrophic fire. So you give an example then of, not an example, sorry, you give an explanation of how the hazard could occur then. And that's what you're seeing here. High concentration of processed dust. You think you get it a bit, folks? You have to explain how, yes, you have to read, write, and spell for NEBOSH. You have to explain how your hazard could affect them. That's what they say. A high concentration of dust are always present from the routine and frequent activities being carried out. Since there is no dust extraction in place, people are breathing in the hazardous dust. So explain what's happening. If I go back to my fire example and I had worn out electrical cords, I had who could be harmed, welders, workers, safety, right? How might be harmed? You can put a worker may touch an exposed wire, thereby exposing him to the risk of shock. You understand? So you explain this then. A worker who may have taken off his glove may attempt to plug in into one of the faulty sockets, thereby receiving a shock to his hand. You understand how people did so did you write it down? What you should have write down is how, is that you have to explain yourself. You have to explain yourself when they ask the how. The who is easy, but they explain yourself. Right? The how is an explanation. Look how long the how is. Watch how long column 2 is. Column 2 is long, but it's just an explanation. If your hazards are slips and trips, you can say that they are like from a leaking refrigerator. Who could be harmed? The kitchen staff, the chef. How might be harmed? You can say the chef and the food preppers may be in a hurry or under work pressure. They may not realize that they are stepping into a pool of water, thereby slipping and falling. This can cause serious injuries such as broken bones, etc. Yes, everybody? All right, third column. So the third column is what you are already doing. Now, this column doesn't have to have much in it, but you have to have something in it, right? So the third column is what you're already doing. It's written in past tense, and 1 or 2 controls is good enough for the third column, right? So what you had here, the third column is written in past tense, what you are already doing or what you're presently doing. Past or present tense, I guess, would work. Right, here they have dilute ventilation. Dilute ventilation means they have just opened the windows and the doors. And what you're already doing, they say dust mask available, but it is not mandatory that they are worn. So with the third column, what you're doing, you're kind of writing up a control, but you're kind of putting a limitation to it. Like you're saying it's not perfect then. Let me go back to my fire example. I had fire, I had the oil and stuff on the ground, right? So I would put here like what is already being done. I would put like housekeeping in the kitchen is done on a weekly basis, but this may not be enough to capture all of the hazards then. You understand? But you put a button then, you put like you put a limit to it. I don't know if you understand that. Like you put, like it's not perfect. You see, it's not perfect because you want to go on to further controls, and that's why it's going to be written in such a way that it's not perfect. Like if I had slips and trips and I had water from the leaking refrigerator, I can put here, work equipment are maintained by a specialist contractor. However, the refrigerator has been leaking for the last 2 weeks and no repair technician has serviced it to date. You understand what I'm doing there? You're leaving room for further improvement then. Folks, I may forget that a bit. And 1 or 2 is good enough in that column. 1 or 2 is good enough in the third column. But what you all think? Think of a hazard. Think of this one that you're seeing here. If it's manual handling, you say workers are moving items, by hand. So what you can put here, you can put workers may have been given a basic orientation on how to do proper manual handling training, but then that was 2 years ago. So you put a but, you say, but that was 2 years ago. You understand? And then you leave room by putting the but, it leaves room for further improvement. Let's go to column 4 quickly. So in column 4, what you put in further controls as much as you could, but you need to put a minimum of 5. You need to have 5 further controls here. This one have more than 5, of course. Right? So what are the further controls? The further controls are the solution to your hazard. Right? You would want to incorporate here the words on the hierarchy of control. You could use your textbooks for that. Next week, I'll spend a little bit more time on that. I'm watching the time kind of running out, but I want to finish off these 2 on this side here, right? So you can put here the problem was dust. So the further controls are the solution for dust, right? Enclosed area to be set up for sanding and grinding operation, including the use of a suitable exhaust ventilation system. You can put here, most students put here, yeah, they put the hierarchy word that lines up to that. That is at the engineering controls, right? LEV system is an engineering control. Yeah, so the examiners are asking for this. Take my word for it. And when you go back, you get some time, you can look the guidance, you put engineering controls there. Purchase of an on-tool dust extraction system. This may be elimination. You just put your control and you put elimination there. Use of face mask. Which one would this be? You know the hierarchy of control. Check out your book for it. The face mask would be PPE. They put PPE in brackets there, right? So here's I'm gonna give you a hint, right? Well, I'll give you 2 hints in less than a minute. So where do you get these 5 controls from? I don't know if you want to write it down. I'll give you about three answers to that. Where do you get the further controls from? Well, the first answer is you. You are the source of your further control. The other one is that you can probably just Google it, like what's a further control for dust or something, right? You could Google some further controls. And the third answer is your second textbook. The second textbook have all the hazards in it and the controls. So you could just use your second textbook, write over some of the controls there in your own words, match it up to the hierarchy of control, eliminate, substitute engineering controls, PP. If you're unsure of what I'm saying, I'll give you the PowerPoints. You'll have the PowerPoints, check through. PowerPoint 7 or 8, I'll email it to you all. You'll see the hierarchy there. And you can just research it if you're not too sure what the hierarchy is. Just Google what is the hierarchy of control for safety. and they try to match up with what you're saying there to the hierarchy words anyway, right? Things like this, improve housekeeping, that's called administrative control, right? So safe system of work is also administrative control, right? So did you all get where to get the further controls from? So let me ask, so where do you get the further controls from? I'll give you 3 answers to that. Further controls are from where?
From yourself, Google, and it's
Yeah, you can just think about it. You know, like how do you, okay, like the one with water, okay, like the leaking refrigerator. That's an obvious control. The obvious control is to call the technician to have it repaired. Another control could be well to remove the refrigerator and put in an isolated location. Another example could be to purchase a new refrigerator. Another example could be to cordon off the area. Another example to have warning signs. That's 5 right there. And that's all from my head. The answers are you, Google, and your second textbook. All right, next 2 columns are very easy. So what you want to put in column 4 and column 5, you want to put a time scale for each action, and you want to put a responsible person for each action. I don't know if you get that. Now, some people don't get it. So that's why English is hard to understand. Even if it's 6 months, 6 months, 6 months, you have to go back and write it in. You have to read, write, and spell for NEBOSH. Let's remember that, right? If this was 6 months, and 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 this was 6 months, you have to put it every time 6 months. You just can't put it once. They will fail you. I'll say it again. Every action must have a time scale and it must have a responsible person, even if it is workshop manager, workshop manager, workshop manager, workshop manager, workshop manager. No, the video didn't stick. I had to say that because I tell you English is hard. If I tell you put for each one, I had a good student of mine who put it once. And as much as I tell them put it, you know, the girl failed. The father was a police. The father come in the office here for me. I say, well, listen to the recording. I tell you what I had to tell you. Right? I tell you put it as much, and that's why I'm saying it, and you put it once. I tell you put it every time you put it once. He had to pay for her to do it over. And she did it over and she passed. But why would you want to fail? Right? Okay, folks, as we sign off, I have one thing to tell you about this again. You see the time scale? Please take a note of this. It must be a number. It must be a number. It must be a number. 1 day, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 1 month and a half. It must be a number. It cannot be a word. It cannot be. You see, the reason I'm telling you is in some companies, they use words, but NEBOSH is absent for a number. It must be a number, right? I said that about 3 times, right? But in some companies, they use words now. They use words like immediate. If you put immediate, that's a fail. Because immediate is not a word. Sorry, immediate is not a number. Immediate is a word. Some companies, they put the word ongoing. Ongoing is correct for the companies, but it's wrong for NEBOSH. So therefore, do not put words. You must put a number for the 5th time. 2 months, 3 months, 1 day, 2 days. All of those are numbers. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. It must 1 year, 2 years. That's still a number, right? Folks, we have to stop, right? It's about the time. Let me call the roll, and I have my other class waiting anyway. Let me stop the recording. Please make an effort to review this recording when you get some time. It's going to be up by tonight.